This week on the Analog Circle podcast, we got quite a few things to go over. Sony's CFO hints at when we could see the PlayStation 5's price tag. Could Astral Chain be coming to other platforms? There are two alleged Nintendo Directs happening this month. EA will be releasing 4 major games because, well, between now and 2021, and we get some small but new info about The Last of Us Part 2. All of these stories and a few more in episode 114 of the Analog Circle podcast. I'm your host, goddaggit, Kiaun Mitchell, and I'm gonna be honest with you listeners, I'm about to burst out in tears because I have been trying to record this episode for 3 hours, man. Each time I have tried to record the episode, I run into sound problems, and man, it is a killer right now. So I excuse me if I sound frustrated, I sound tired, I sound a little wired, but that is the situation that I am going through right now as it stands. But without further ado, guys, I am very, very happy to be here. I'm extremely happy to be recording a second week in a row to talk about this culture that we all love and are very passionate about. Of course, I'm talking about this beautiful gaming culture. Now, before I get into the show, I want to let you guys know that you can follow the show over on YouTube. Just type in the Analog Circle podcast. It's over on Stitcher Radio. It's over on iTunes as well as Audio Max. So please feel free to download the app wherever it's convenient for you and listen to the show. Now, without further ado, guys, you know how I do. I like to jump right into my favorite section of the podcast, and that is, of course, the feedback section. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the MVPs. Email Mr. Cody Clark. Now, the title of his email is Deep Pockets and Bad Decisions. Man, oh man, what could happen with that combination, brother? Now, he says, welcome back, sir. I truly appreciate it, Cody. Thank you, brother. He continues to say, PlayStation VR, the Oculus Rift, and the Ouya all lasted or are still around way longer than maybe they should have. Lots of other things have done the same. Google has enough clout where things like Google Plus and their other projects either become the norm or just sit on the sidelines for way too long before being shuttered. I'm pretty sure Stadia will be around for a few more years before it is just forgotten and ignored and thrown in the quote, also ran, end of quote, category with dozens of other Google fails. How strange is the also ran universe with games and hardware? Maybe Stadia will transition to a game service like Steam or Xbox Game Pass. Google has more money than a lot of other countries, so we'll just have to wait and see. He finishes off the email by saying, welcome back, K. Happy 2020. Brother Cody Clark. Brother. Every time you write in, like I say, it is truly appreciated. I enjoy reading your emails. I always love your feedback, love your take on things. And as we were just talking about, Google Stadia. My question was, do you guys think that Google Stadia will be around next year? And according to Cody Clark, It looks like he believes that they have a chance. They have the clout. They have the money. They have the backing to be able to do something with this service. Now, I gotta tell you, Cody, I didn't write this in the notes, but Google Stadia is under fire yet again, because now they are shifting the blame on developers, saying that it is not their responsibility to tell people when new games are coming to the service. First off, I understand that technically, yes, that is true. Nintendo, they don't do it with every game. Sony darn sure doesn't do it with every game, and neither does Microsoft. But do you know what those three companies have that Stadia doesn't? They have a firm fan base. You, Stadia, Google, you are the new kid on the block. Brother, you don't have that luxury right now. You need to be out there champagne campaigning with these companies, trying to get them in your good graces, letting them know, hey, anything that you need from us, we are willing to do. I mean, of course, in reason. But for them to pass the buck, pass the blame, not take any of the brunt of the situation that is going on, that says a lot about the company. Now, can things change? I don't know. I mean, Phil Harrison, man, God bless him. That brother has, everywhere he is gone, let's say his track record is like a Dalmatian. It is very goddamn spotty at goddaggone best. So I don't know what the situation is going to end up being for Google Stadia, but we will see as the coming days, weeks, and months go. Cody Clark, as always, brother, you're totally awesome. I thank you for this email. I truly do. And please continue to write in. It always makes me feel good when I hear bing, and it's an email from Cody Clark. Shout out to you, brother. Thank you so much. And yes, I did get your other email, brother. I did. Hey, I'm be real with you, brother. I don't have it pulled up right now, man. And I don't want to waste the time. I got to sift through, and I want to try to stay professional instead of unprofessional productions, because that's what we do over here. We're so unprofessional. I pride myself on it, to be honest with you. But I do want to move on though, Cody. Like I said, you are the guy. You're my dude. Truly appreciate you, man. But, I just want to move on to the next doggone feedback. Now, this is actually a newcomer. The name of this gentleman is Vaughn. And Vaughn, I shouted him out last week. Thanked him for his kind, voicemail, from a couple of weeks ago. I believe it was like December 20th. He had, voicemailed me, and he is back again. So I want to properly introduce this email. I mean, I keep on saying email because we don't get a lot of voicemails around here. Cody Clark, like I said, I call him the MVP because that brother was writing in on a constant basis, and without him writing in, doggone, this section would have been dead a long time ago. So we got a voicemail. So let's go ahead without further ado, and let's get into Mr. Vaughn's voicemail. Take it away, brother.
What's up, Kiaun? It's Vaughn. Just dropping you a little line here, letting you know, man, I was so excited to see the latest episode, and please listen to it right away. Brother, everything's right on point. Jump right back in like you never left. You know, like they say, never call it a comeback. Been here for years, you know the rest, but everything was great. Love the new logo. Keep doing what you're doing, but not going to make this long. Let me jump right into it. You were talking about your question, for us was for Stadia. I'm going to go ahead and give my opinion. I think that the Stadia will be around next year, depending on how they do during this holiday season. If they get their act together before the holidays, straighten out a lot of promises that they made, then yeah, I think they will make it. But they won't be around too much longer after that if they don't in the 2021. My question for you, though, as far as the new systems, all the systems, PS5, Xbox Series X, and Switch Pro, what excites you the most? What features excite you the most for each system? So let me know what you think about that. What else? You mentioned about Star Wars, not really being in Star Wars. I'm not either. But I will advise you, if you can, check out The Mandalorian. You don't have to know the Star Wars universe. That is an excellent series, so please check that out. Excellent. You'll want to binge it after the first episode. Believe me. All right, brother. And I will catch you on the next show. Keep up what you're doing. Like I said, everything sounded great. Talk to you next time.
Shout out to you, Mr. Vaughn. Shout out to you, brother. I truly want to thank you for this voicemail. Man, voicemails are really cool to me because you really get to hear what the person, what they sound like. You know what I mean? So I truly appreciate it. But on to your voicemail, though, brother. Now, you are in the same boat as my dude, Mr. Cody Clark, where you think that these guys, they have a chance, but you're saying that they have to clean their act up by the holiday. The holiday season to you is I guess that's going to be the make or break part of the year. And I can understand why, because usually that's the time of year where a lot of people are willing to spend a little bit more money and they're willing to go out there and get certain gifts that people want. And my thing is this, Vaughn, you're absolutely right. They have until the holiday season, but I mean, I can't even guarantee that. You know me, brother. I don't think it's going to last. I would say maybe a year, but that's about it. But my thing is that the competition is going to be very, very tough because you have the PlayStation 5 coming out this year and you have the Xbox Series X coming out this year. And these consoles are going to be monstrosities. And I understand that Google Stadia, since theirs is in the cloud, they can probably add a little bit more teraflops or whatever they need to do. Because it's in the cloud, it's not regulated to hardware. But it always comes down to the games. And what is Stadia going to have this holiday season? We know that Microsoft, they're going to have Halo Infinite, which is going to be a massive game for them. I mean, 343, they have to knock it out of the park. It's all pending is if 343 can do their job. And then you have Sony on their side with games like The Last of Us Part 2 releasing, as well as games like Ghost of Tsushima. And they're saying it's other games that are coming out that we don't know about. I mean, they're saying that Horizon Zero Dawn 2 may be at the launch of the PlayStation 5. So between those two platforms, they have big AAA games that people are going to be excited to play. And then you look over there at Stadia and you ask the question, what the world does Stadia have that the others don't? And that's the big question. Xbox, even though their games aren't officially exclusive anymore, it looks like Sony, theirs, are teetering on not being exclusive. The thing is that Stadia, what do they have? What can they show? And you're right, if they can get it together, Vaughn, if they can make sure that, they're doing everything they can in their power to, turn the ship around, then it's possible. But we'll have to see, brother. But I didn't mean to get long-winded with that. Shout out to you, brother. And you did ask, what am I looking forward to as far as the features of the other consoles that will be coming out in the next generation? I'm going to tell you, Vaughn, graphics are always always at the top of my list, brother. I'm looking for the games that just look absolutely amazing. I am such a fan of graphics. But I will say for the first time that I am absolutely even more excited, or equally as excited about the load times. I cannot wait to see how fast we'll be able to get into our games. I would say that is the number one thing, Vaughn, that I'm looking forward to more than anything outside of graphics, of course, is the load times, because load times on this current generation have been horrendous. You just load up GTA 5, load up Red Dead Redemption 2. Good guggly mug. Shoot, it's horrible. I mean, the load times are terrible. Load up Witcher 3. I mean, the load times, sheesh, they could be better. So, outside of graphics, that's the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to. But Vaughn, as always, brother, thank you so very much for this voicemail. I truly appreciate it, and I hope that you continue to call in. Thank you so much, brother. So without further ado, you guys, man, I didn't play anything this week. I didn't get a chance. I think I did play a little bit more of Judgment for a couple of minutes, but man, it was pretty sparse. Didn't have a lot of time to really get into anything. So we'll be skipping that section, what I've been into, but I want to go ahead and get into the meat and the potatoes of what we all come here for, and that is the gaming news. The gaming news. I hiccuped right there, my bad. But let's talk about the gaming news that went down this week. God darn, I hiccuped again. Oh, I'm so unprofessional. Now let's go ahead and get started with Nintendo. So Nintendo is celebrating a huge milestone. According to Daniel Ahmad, who is a Nico partner analyst, he is reporting that the Nintendo Switch has shipped 52.48 million units in just 34 months. So in less than 3 years, the console has overtaken the Xbox One and is tracking ahead of the PlayStation 4. Now, once again, according to Daniel Ahmad. So basically, this is crazy. What took Xbox One a little over 6 years to do, Nintendo did in less than 3 years. And you may ask yourself, how the heck did they do that? It's simple. They doubled down on the games. They went hard to the wall about the games, because you remember back during the Wii U generation, that was their biggest problem. They were not releasing games on a constant basis. It would be months and months and months of a drought for the Wii U before they got one game, and then that game ends up being Star Fox, which is mediocre at goddamn very, very best. So that killed the Wii U, on top of, my goodness, the terrible marketing, people thinking that the Wii U controller was just an add-on for the Wii. I mean, it was just a disaster. But Nintendo does show one thing. I mean, Sony has shown it as well. You can have a horrible generation and then bounce right back in the next generation. So for people that keep saying that Microsoft, they're going to be the same Microsoft, they're not going to, gain any ground. If anything, they're going to lose a lot of ground. And I'm going to tell you, all honesty, I was truly a person that believed that they were going to lose ground, because I was not a fan of the moves that were happening under Phil Spencer's watch. But recently, I gotta say, man, Phil Spencer and the Xbox team has been on a roll, showing off that Hellblade 2 footage early, showing off the other project that is coming from Ninja Theory early, which is a horror game or something like that. And then they showed off the other project from Rare that's coming out. I mean, they are doing things that we have been asking them to do for years. So, with that being said, I am starting to gain a little bit more faith in the Microsoft brand, and I do believe that as long as they stay aggressive and they play their cards right, they could be back in the fight again in this upcoming generation. And I mean, once again, all you gotta do is look at Nintendo and see what they did from the Wii U generation to the Switch generation, and that's a blueprint right there. Outside of it being a hybrid of a console, which that console is so dope. Buy one if you have it. God darn it, buy one. It's great. Let's move on to the next story. Now, I wanna keep with the Nintendo theme, just a little longer, because as we all know, the alleged Switch Pro rumors have not gone away. And because of this, Nintendo finally came out and they actually said something during their latest fiscal report. Now, this is the quote. Please note that we have no plans to launch a new Nintendo Switch model during 2020. Now, this quote actually came from Nintendo's president, Shigeru Furukawa. I think I said that right. Man, I struggle with the names, brother. Oh, I struggle. But this actually puts to bed any of the rumors, any of the hopes, wishes, and dreams that the console, that the Pro is coming out this year. This officially cements that, but that does not mean that it's not being worked on, because I remember last week I was talking about an insider that said that it seemed like the console was going to be delayed until 2021 because they were having some problems. So maybe it could be one of those situations. But you also got to think that Nintendo has just brought out the Switch Lite. It's no reason for them to rush to have another product out, especially with these crazy numbers that they are doing right now with what they have. It's no reason to rush back and get back into the R&D, spend all of these millions upon millions of dollars to go ahead and make a new console. Just stick with what you have right now and let that rock out. And once the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox One come on the scene, see what the temperature is, see if you're losing ground, and then if you're losing ground, do a counter reaction. But until that happens, I stay where you're at. I think it's great. It would be awesome, don't get me wrong, to get a Switch Pro that can do, some of the things we all know that it'll never do what the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X is going to do, because that hasn't been Nintendo's MO in the last few generations. But it would be nice to see them at least semi-compete and have some better graphics, better frames, and, maybe faster loading times. But anyway, we'll see. Now let's move on into the next story. Now we have a new game studio being put together by Wizards of the Coast, who is the company behind Magic: The Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. I did not know they were in charge of that. God darn. Now the name of the new studio is called Archetype Entertainment, and the thing about this studio that really caught my eye is that the studio will be led by veterans James Olin and Chad Robertson, who both are former BioWare employees who worked on games like Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic, Baldur's Gate, Dragon Age, and Neverwinter Nights, just to name a few. So with these two guys at the helm of this new debut project, which is described as a multi-platform RPG that is, quote, set in a all-new sci-fi universe that will send players on a story-driven epic where choices they make will have real consequences on how their story unfolds. End of quote. And just for clarification, this new IP will not be set in either the D&D or Magic franchise. This is brand spanking new. Now, with these two guys with the pedigree that they have, leading a studio of a game of this magnitude, a RPG, where your choices will have consequences. My goodness, when you talk about BioWare, that is a company that I mean, look, I don't know everything about gaming. I've been around gaming my whole life, but I cannot think outside of choose your own adventure books where a gaming company has actually made your choices really, really count in a video game. I think BioWare was the first. Don't quote me on that. But Knights of the Old Republic, that was a game that I just never played anything like it before, with those consequences really having real ramifications. Mass Effect having so many ramifications that it spanned over 3 titles, which was something we had never, ever seen before. So with these two guys at the helm, I have no doubts that this game is going to be something special. At least that is the hope. You hope that things are going to be special when you have guys of their magnitude leading up a team like this on a project like this. But we will see in the upcoming months. Hopefully, E3 is coming up soon. I don't know if these guys are going to make an appearance. We'll see if they're there. I am really, really looking forward to hearing more about this project. Now, let's move on into some very, very interesting news, something that kind of came out of left field for me. Now, with huge companies like EA and Sony backing out of E3, people are starting to question E3's relevance and importance to the industry. Well, the ESA has come out and said it is, quote, committed to keeping E3 at the level you've come to expect. They continue to say, and I quote, "You'll be happy to know that we're not producing E3 2020 in a vacuum. We're collaborating with industry insiders and new creative partners, including the tastemakers at im8bit.com, to reinvigorate the show and, frankly, to shake things up. We are well down the path on the development and production of a large, super fun floor experience that celebrates gaming culture in exciting new ways." End of quote. Now, the ESA also said that the show floor would feature gatherings for people to play and celebrate games with experimental zones that delight the senses, incredibly inclusive, celebrating all aspects of our industry. End of quote. So it looks like that the ESA, gotta give them credit, they are not letting E3 go into the night without a fight, brothers. They are holding the line. They are going to do whatever it takes to keep the show alive. And I tell you, as a gamer, as a fan of E3, the last thing I want to do is see E3 go away. For me, in June, that is the time, that is the month that I get so excited, because I know that gaming is going to be on the big stage for a whole entire week. It is truly Christmas in the summertime for me. It is truly just a treat, a joy, and just an amazing time for me as a gamer, that when June comes, I know that it's going to be a blitz of information. And, like I said in the beginning, with companies like Sony, the big three basically backing out, especially Nintendo and Sony, they aren't even having, looks like, shows right. Well, no. Nintendo does have the Direct during E3. So even though they're not doing a stage show, they do have a presence at E3. But right now, Sony, God dang, those jokers have just completely turned their back on E3 week. Now, who knows what they're going to do this year? Maybe they put up one of those PlayStation, I forget the name of it, but it's the short 15-minute, maybe 20-minute video clips that they show, similar to a Nintendo Direct. Maybe they do something like that, but who knows? Right now, it looks like they are out of the E3 game as it stands right now. But I hope that this works for the ESA. Hopefully, this brings some traffic back into the arena. I know that it was talks that it could be moving to Vegas where they could have more room. I mean, that's still up in the air, but we shall see. But nonetheless, the takeaway from this is that the ESA is going to do everything they can to make sure that they maintain E3. So we shall see. Now let's talk about EA for a minute. Now, during EA's latest earnings call, they announced that between now and March of 2021, there will be 4, count them, 4 major games released. Now, I know a lot of people, including myself, God darn, would love to see the Mass Effect trilogy come back and get remastered. But for me, more importantly, I want to see a Titanfall 3. That's what I have on my list. I was such a uber huge fan of Titanfall 2. I mean, the gun mechanics, the gameplay mechanics, the wall running mechanics, the acrobatical mechanics of the goddamn pilot was absolutely fantastic. I absolutely loved the game. I loved the banter between you and the robot. It was absolutely great. Eventually, you kind of start feeling for the robot. It was just such a great game. So for me, Titanfall 3 would be on my list. And the publisher did say that they have, quote, exciting remasters of fan favorites in the works. So once again, if that's the case, outside of Titanfall 3, if we are talking about remasters again, I would love to see Dead Space 1 through 3, the trilogy, get remastered. Now, Dead Space for me, I have to let you guys know something. I was not early on Dead Space. I didn't catch up with Dead Space until Dead Space 3 had arrived. And I know for a lot of people, they say that Dead Space 3 was the worst one. But for me, I gotta tell you, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a great game. The co-op aspect of the game was great. Graphically, it was great. Gameplay was awesome. I mean, it was just an amazing game. So if they're going to remaster this, now keep in mind, we don't know what games are going to be remastered. But for me, I would get Dead Space, that trilogy, before I would get Mass Effect, because I never played the first or the second one. Now, also, if you ask me what would be on my biggest wish list, though, you should know that it would be no doubt. Now, this would be the creme de la creme for me. I would absolutely, man, I ain't gonna pass out or fall out, but I will jump out of my chair and probably yell at the top of my lungs if EA will ever bring back the legendary game Fight Night. Fight Night to me, oh my gosh, that would be, no pun intended, a knockout blow. So many of us have been wanting, craving, asking, writing to EA saying, please, can you please give us another Fight Night? I mean, it's such a great time in boxing right now with people like Anthony Joshua out there, with people like Tyson Fury that are fighting, Deontay Wilder. I mean, you actually have faces of the sport now. This is a fantastic time, EA, to jump back into it. And I guarantee you so many people would go out and buy the game. I have UFC 1, 2, and 3. And I only got them because I was trying to get my boxing fix. And that just is not the answer. That ain't it, brother. That does not give me what I crave as far as a Fight Night goes. EA, please, please make this happen. And I know that Anthony Joshua, his manager, I forget his name. I forget the brother's name, but he did say that he has been in the talks with EA to try to have a boxing game come to fruition. Now, how much of a chance do we have of this happening? No one knows, but I would think that Fight Night would be such a lucrative game because it has just been dormant. We haven't had anything. And I mean, what was it? Fight Night round 4, I believe, where you played as, it had a campaign, it had a story, and the story was decent. It was good. I mean, for it to have been a sports campaign, I couldn't complain. I thought that it was really well done. I thought that, the characters were interesting graphically. Come on, man. Come on, man. It holds up to this day. So, I'm rambling too much on this, but goodness, please, EA, you got 4 chances, 4 shots. Please make one of these for me or someone else out there happen. I'm rooting for you, EA. God dang it. Now, let's move on to another story. Brothers, I'm sweating. God dang. Let me wipe my brow. I'm sweating right now. Whew. Let's move on, man. So, according to a leaker named, his name is Sabby. not Savvy, but Sabby with a B. He is claiming that Nintendo is going to have 2 directs in February. Now, he said, and I quote, a reliable friend of mine, Zippo, is claiming that there will be 2 directs this month for obvious reasons, end of quote. So he thinks that the reason why it will be 2 directs is because one will focus on Animal Crossing, New Horizons, and the other would be a proper direct. Now, the only thing I'm hoping for is some news on Metroid Prime 4, if this is true. God darn, what the world happened to any news about Metroid Prime 4? It has totally just went radio silent. Now, also, the real Nintendo Direct was actually the last one, was September 4th, 2019. Also, Sabi is saying Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 won't make it out this year, but Mario Kart 9 will. Mario Kart 9 is allegedly supposed to take the place of Breath of the Wild 2 this year. Now, we don't know if any of this is true. From the 2 directs happening to one of them focusing on Animal Crossing and one of them being a proper Nintendo Direct. Nobody knows, and nobody darn sure knows if Mario Kart 9 is going to come out this year. But like I said, the only thing that I hope for is that if this Direct is true, an official direct, because it's been going on a year since we've actually had a proper one. At least 6 months it's going on since we've had one. I'm just hoping that Nintendo tells us some information. I would love to get some screenshots. Oh my gosh, I would actually doggone fall out my chair if we get gameplay of Metroid Prime 4. So we'll have to wait and see if this comes to fruition once again. But dag, how cool would it be to have this event happen and they actually come out swinging with some haymakers? Mario Kart 9 and Metroid Prime 4 in the same year? God dag, that sounds like a win-win to me. Now let's talk about The Last of Us Part 2. Now the only thing we know is the game will release May 29th, but other details have been scarce. But we did get some news that is nothing crazy, but we did find out that The Last of Us Part 2, according to the ESRB, will contain blood and gore, strong language, intense violence, use of drugs, strong language, and none of that comes as a shock, but it also will have nudity and sexual content, which is defined by the ESRB to mean a non-explicit depiction of sexual behavior, possibly including partial nudity. Now, this is when you're just dumpster diving for news right now, brothers. And I am in a dumpster and I'm diving right now. Man, I'm swimming in it. I mean, we have never, sometimes, and I've said this before and I just don't learn. I never do. But sometimes when you write something up or I write something, I think, man, this is good news. This is great. Everybody would love to hear about this. And then once again, when I start recording and I start talking to y'all and I'm actually hearing myself read it, God dag, it just sounds like, man, this could have just stayed off the page. We did not have to talk about this. But since we're here, and I mean, we're already walking down the road, I just want to say that I don't know how big of a deal this is. I only wrote about it because I saw an article about this like 5 times. And I was like, dag, man, maybe this is really big news. Now, I mean, some of the people that were writing some of the stories were saying, man, Naughty Dog has never done this in any of their games. This is a first. This is huge. Could this, be a really, really important part in the plot of the story and it's going to push it forward? I mean, we did get a glimpse of Ellie's back in one of the trailers where, I mean, her back was just, man, full of doggone sores and, welts, like she really got beat up and, just things didn't work out too well for the young lady. But we also know that her girlfriend in one of the scenes looked like she had got captured, and I mean, they made it look like something bad, something very, very bad, something that could be, looked at as something that could have ramifications on Ellie's psyche, as far as something happening to her. It just looked very, very horrible, or at least it was depicted that way. And maybe that could be something that could, be part of why this game is getting the rating that it's getting. I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, The Last of Us Part 2, it's gonna sell. I'm gonna be there day 0. All right. I mean, look, if I can get it early, I would pay the extra money to get it early. I'll be honest. That's how big of a fan I am of The Last of Us, and especially The Last of Us 2 looking the way that it looks. This game is going to be massive. This game could possibly be the game of the generation. For me already, God of War is the game of the generation. I mean, mad props and respect to The Witcher 3 and to Red Dead Redemption 2. But for me, man, God of War, hands down. Greatest game of the generation. Now we have Cyberpunk 2077 coming out, and we have The Last of Us Part 2. I mean, it's stiff competition for what game is the game of the generation. But it's no doubt that anybody out there that knows what Naughty Dog brings to the table, they can absolutely say that The Last of Us Part 2 will definitely be in that conversation. So I'm definitely looking forward to this, and very interested to see if these theories that people are coming up with, you know, about why it's the kind of content that's going to be in the game will come true. We shall see. But let's go ahead and, you know, I want to talk about now this is something that I found very, very interesting about Astral Chain. So Platinum Games studio head Asushi Inaba confirmed to VGC that Astral Chain is half owned by Nintendo and half owned by Platinum Games. But the most interesting thing he said was, and I quote, "It's too early to say whether Astral Chain will eventually take the multi-platform route, but it would be up to the Big N to sign off on such a move." End of quote. Now, because they own the publishing rights, you know, of course it would fall in their back pocket, being Nintendo. Now, I brought this up because we have seen multiple times that Microsoft has put several games that they own the publishing to on other platforms such as PC and even the Nintendo Switch. Now, we see Sony is dabbling with putting some of their exclusives on other devices like PC, and have even gone as far as have or take a poll on whether or not to give PlayStation players the option to stream their games to a Switch. Now, all we keep hearing is gaming is changing, but the only company that continues to stay pretty traditional for the most part is Nintendo, outside of, you know, putting a few offshoot titles on mobile. So to me, this is a test. Now, if Nintendo decides to put Astral Chain on multiple devices, I would say yes, the landscape is truly moving. But if they don't, then I would think it's safe to say that Nintendo could care less about this new gaming model of putting your games on multiple devices. Now, I mean, I don't know. I think that, you know, I mean, we're hearing it constantly. Microsoft, Phil Spencer saying that the gaming industry is not the way that it used to be. Competition isn't the way that it used to be. We don't go by the same, numbers that we used to go by, the same metrics that we used to count. So, I mean, you're hearing all of these things over on Sony's side. I mean, they looking a little different right now. It's rumors going around that The Last of Us Part 2 might be going to PC, and I think that was because of a job listing on LinkedIn. People had tried to piece the two together and say, oh, it's coming to PC. Oh my goodness, they're going to lose The Last of Us Part 2. We don't know that for sure. Not yet, at least, but we do know that Detroit Become Human has gone to PC. We know, or at least it's still in the air, still in limbo, but it's looking like it could be true that Horizon Zero Dawn might be coming to PC. And we also know that coming in the next few short months, that Death Stranding is going to be on the PC. So even on Sony's side, things are changing, and I thought that they would stay 100% traditional. But even with the different people that they have over on Sony's side, I mean, it shows that, you know, nothing is off the table. So if Nintendo, to me, sends Astral Chain over on the PlayStation 4, well, I mean the PlayStation 5, whichever one, or the Xbox One or the Series X, then this shows that, man, things are really, really switching and going in a whole nother direction that I would have never, ever seen gaming go into. I remember when Sonic God dag, when I saw Sonic on the GameCube for the first time, I darn near had a small miniature gaming heart attack. I couldn't believe it. I said, this is gaming blasphemy. You mean to tell me that Sonic is teamed up with Mario in the Olympics? This just doesn't look like it should be. But it happened. Sega was out of the game. They turned third party, and that's what happened. So that was the closest thing I've seen to anything like we're experiencing now. So, I mean, it's a very, very interesting time. And don't get me wrong, it is a absolutely wonderful time to be a gamer. I'm not trying to put any negative spin on this. I'm just saying that, good grief, it's looking different out here is all I'm saying in these gaming streets, brother. But let's move on to some more interesting news. Now, for any of you that know me, you know that I became the absolute biggest fan of Ratchet & Clank this generation. So I have been clamoring for a new darn Ratchet & Clank. Now, according to Colin Moriarty, it's another rumor going around courtesy of CBR that says, and I quote, "We're going to get a Ratchet & Clank in between Spider-Man PlayStation 4 and its sequel on PlayStation 5. End of quote. No, that ain't the end of the quote. The quote continues to say, "I feel like that's going to be a launch game. The Ratchet & Clank game that's long been in development at Insomniac." That's the end of the quote. So it's been almost 4 years since we've seen a new Ratchet & Clank. And if you have a PlayStation 4 and you have not played Ratchet & Clank, oh my gosh, that is another absolutely amazing game this generation. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna go off on a side note of a tangent here, just for a minute. Just let me vent. Let me vent. I ain't talked to y'all in a while. Man, I tell you, the game was just so, it was amazing. I mean, this generation, people can say what they want, but for me, I've had way more fun this generation versus last generation. I think I have played better games this generation than last generation. Now, we know that everybody is going to hark back to that golden time in the 2000s, that golden year in gaming, 2007. That's the landmark that everybody goes to. That's the year BioShock came out. That's the year Mass Effect came out. And that's the year that it's one more, Assassin's Creed came out. Everybody is goo gaga over that time frame. 2007 was an amazing year in gaming, and I don't take that away. But if you ask me, how many games did I play that generation that I thought were just absolutely stunning and amazing and just beyond anything I could have imagined, versus this generation, ask me that same question, I have to say it has just been so many games this generation that I have truly enjoyed. And people crap on this generation, and I just don't get it. I mean, we've had, like I said, I mean, look, granted, I ain't gonna lie to you, granted, brothers, most of these are on the PlayStation 4. I mean, I ain't gonna lie to you, but keeping it a buck, keeping it a bean with y'all, man, I mean, look, God of War. Who's gonna say anything bad about God of War? The game was just darn near flawless. Ratchet & Clank. Another game that I gave like a 9.5 to. The game is darn near flawless, and it looks like you're darn near playing a Pixar movie when it comes to that game. Absolutely excellent. The Witcher 3, another amazing game. You had Red Dead Redemption 2, which you can say, well, Red Dead Redemption was back on the 360 and the PlayStation 3 era. Yes, that's true, but it was nowhere near as big and as detailed as Red Dead Redemption 2. That game is just on a whole nother level of greatness. That game is absolutely amazing. I mean, we've had that experience. I mean, we've had, even though Grand Theft Auto 5 was technically last generation, but it did get moved over to this generation, and it was all the better for it. I mean, it's just been so many awesome games this generation. Sunset Overdrive, a lot of people didn't like it. I don't care. I loved it. I thought it was a great game. Game was awesome. I mean, just the experiences that I had this generation, and I'm not even giving this generation its just due, because I'm missing a lot of games. Until Dawn was another game that I thoroughly enjoyed. I mean, I've had so much fun this generation that I think, like I said, I would say this generation was better than last generation. I would say by a semi-landslide even. Oh yeah, I don't care. Come for me. God dang it. I said it. Yeah. I have enjoyed this generation more than last generation. Come sue me. I mean, yeah, we got Gears of War last generation. Absolutely amazing. But this generation has been no slouch. Anyway, I'm going to move on, guys. I'm going to move on to the next story because I mean, look, I went a little too far. Went a little too far with the time with that one, but I definitely meant what I said though. And I stand on that, brothers. Now let's move on. Now this next piece of PlayStation 5 news is not groundbreaking, but it is interesting. Now here is a direct quote from Sony CFO Hiroki, buddy, here we go. Totak. I think I got that right. Totak. Yeah. Who said this, and I quote, "What is not very clear or visible is because we are competing in this space. It's very difficult to discuss anything about the price at this point. Depending upon the price level, we may have to determine the promotion that we are going to deploy and how much costs we are prepared to pay." So it's a question of balance. End of quote. Now, if you guys don't know what I was talking about, because I was very, very vague on that, he was actually talking about why we haven't heard a price point yet. And basically, the gentleman is saying, look, we gotta wait to see what Microsoft is gonna do. We have to see what their price point is. And if their price point is a little lower than we were expecting to go, then that's when we're gonna have to figure out what we have to do, what we have to promote in order to make sure that we get money. Because the gentleman did say, and once again, his name is Hiroki Totak. Hopefully I'm saying that brother's name right. But what he was basically saying, this was a conference call that he had, I think a quarterly call it was, where he was saying that don't worry, we're going to profit. We're going to make the PlayStation 5 get us money, but we have to wait to see what, Xbox is going to do. Now, this is interesting for me because I have said for I don't know how many years, I don't know how long, I have said, why doesn't Microsoft let Sony go first? See what they are going to do first, and you be the one to be counter-reactive. You go ahead and counter what they say, because I am a true, firm believer that Sony waited to see what Microsoft was going to do, and they said, you know what, okay, they said 500. They have the camera in the box. Guess what? We were going to go there, but it didn't work out too good. We're going to lower it down to 400, And we're going to take our camera out of the box. Can I prove that? Absolutely not. No, I cannot. But it has just always been interesting to me that Sony has always been able to get the upper hand. Now, this is the interesting part for me as well. Will Microsoft actually say their price point first? I don't know what they're going to do. I would hope that they would have learned by now. Now, I understand that these new consoles, they are basically going to be what they're going to be. This generation that is past or coming to an end, coming to a close, they didn't really sell the hardware at a major loss. I believe they were making between $30 and $40 off of the hardware this generation, when usually they take a loss on the hardware in order to get everybody in the ecosystem, excuse me. Now, it'll be interesting to see, like I said once again, if Microsoft continues with their same old pattern, or if they switch it up and maybe stall out and see what Sony's gonna do. Now, it's word out there on the street. I mean, it's all rumors. Nobody knows what's going to happen, but they're saying that Sony is going to once again have another event. It's not happening the 5th of this month. I mean, we all can see that, but they're saying that it's going to be the 29th. I will have to see. And, I don't know. But anyway, this is interesting. This also says to me that how people would say, oh no, these conferences and these prices are already pre-baked, already built in. They already know what they're going to sell it at. This makes me question that theory and say, man, are they just waiting to see what the competition does? We will have to see. Now, this last story that I want to go over. Now, this next story isn't video game related initially, but we'll double back to, show how the two correlate with one another. So, listen to this, man. It's this elementary school in, Berkeley, California, right? They're hosting a parents' night out fundraiser where they were playing the remake of The Lion King to keep the kids entertained. Now, one of the fathers, he actually bought the movie from Best Buy, and he is the PTA president. His name is David Rose. So everything was all good until around 2 months later, where Emerson Elementary received an email from a licensing company over 2 months later, after the event was over, saying they had to pay $250 for illegally screening the movie. And the company went on to say that since they don't have a licensing agreement, that if they do it again, they will be charged $250 per show of the movie if it shows up at any future events at the school. Now, to be fair, if a movie is shown outside of the home, you do need legal permission because, it's considered a public performance, even if it's shown in school. Now, by law, the school would have to get a public performance license in order for this to fly. Now, knowing this about Disney, because if you don't know, this company actually works for Disney. Disney, it is so terrible. It is nothing funny about this. Disney, knowing this about Disney, they were petty LaBelle with this one. These people were out there doing a fundraiser, trying to get money for the school, trying to get books, trying to help students, and daggone Disney got whiff of this, and those jokers said, okay, y'all made $800. Guess what? I need about $250 of that. I mean, god dag. Now, I bring this up because it was a time when Sony and Disney, they were beefing with each other about Spider-Man. And everybody was saying, oh man, you know what, Disney, they're going to take the knee to Sony. They know that they need Sony, and you know, this and that and that and this. I'm saying to myself, God dag, if they did this to some average, regular people actually doing a good deed, you know, trying to raise money and help students and get new books. If Disney was that cutthroat, do you really think that they were going to let daggone Sony off the hook with just a little slap on the wrist? You gotta be kidding me. Because if you're not aware, Disney, they own everything about the Spider-Man IP outside of the movie universe. The movies, Sony, they have total control over the Spider-Man IP. But outside of the movies, Disney has the rights to everything, and that includes the rights to Spider-Man appearing in video games. Now, this is the thing. During that rift, during that time, Sony had just got Insomniac Games. They had just made the acquisition and picked them up. And what game did they just finish up that was such an amazing game? It was Spider-Man. Insomniac was high off of that, and that game was so impactful. It sold over 10 million copies, making it the #1 best-selling superhero game of all time. And you think that Sony didn't hear Disney when they start knocking? Man, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of that skit. I don't know if y'all ever saw that skit on South Park where who was it? Mickey Mouse had came up and he was beating on the Jonas Brothers.
Well, maybe we'll just refuse to go on stage. Oof. You don't talk to me like that, you little piece of shit. Get the Now, do we have a problem?
No, sir. No, Mr. Mouse. No, Mr. Mouse.
Oh, that's good, because I thought we had a problem for a minute there, All right, now, get out there and make me some goddamn money,
I mean, Disney are some for real gangsters, man. I mean, they said, God dang those kids, darn them kids, darn the books, darn your cars. Make sure you give me my goddamn money. That's all Disney cared about. And the thing is, I can understand, look, legal ramifications, you know, you gotta have a understanding and a partnership or whatever with them. But, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not Sony, but Disney could have given the school a cease and desist. Just tell them, look, don't do it again. They could have gave them a warning. But Disney is so petty that they said, nah, you got to come up off of that $250. We need that. So I'm just saying that to say once again, Sony had to daggone play ball with Disney because they are petty LaBelle. Shout out to Javon for that, by the way. But anyway, that is the end of the gaming news this week. But guys, look, I think I'm gonna retire video game theater, man. I think I'm gonna go ahead and put that on the back burner. If you guys want it, you let me know, but I'm gonna retire that, man. I don't know if anybody really was feeling it or not. Who knows? But I want to go ahead and get into the final section of the podcast, and that is where I ask you guys a question. So this week's question, without further ado, is, will Sony show the PlayStation 5 in February? I want to double back to that little bit of news that we've heard where they're going to be having the event February 29th, allegedly. I think that somebody actually said that was debunked because Let me go ahead and look at my calendar. Let me see. I think they said that fell on a Saturday. It does. Yeah, February 29th falls on a Saturday, so they were thinking, nah, that doesn't seem right. But everybody seems fixated on February because we know that that's what PlayStation or Sony, they did with the PlayStation 4. They had shown it off early in February, and people think that they're going to follow suit. I even thought they were, but it's looking more and more bleak as the days go by. So that is my question to you guys. And if it's not going to be February, what month do you think it'll be shown in? Now, I know that they're not supposed to technically be at E3, but I do believe that Sony could possibly show off something with their, I wish I remembered the name of that event that they do. Like I said, it's like the Nintendo Directs. Golly, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it. But maybe they'll do something like that. Now, I don't know if that would be as impactful as it would be to have a crowd there, to have people, excited, pumped up to try it out, showing on stage real-time demos instead of it being mocked up, kind of, like via Nintendo Switch, kind of, not Nintendo Switch, but a Nintendo Direct event. So I don't know. That's the question that I have for you guys this week. I would love to hear from you guys. As always, you can call in at 443-216-9934 and let your voice be heard. Or you can email the show, and the email address is theanalogcirclepodcast@gmail.com. Guys, this has been wonderful. This is therapy for a brother, and I'm going to tell you, this was a trying episode. I got to get this laptop looked at because my sound was going in and out for, here it is, 9:20. You guys know I started recording at 6 o'clock. So, man, we're talking about 3 solid, 5 o'clock. No, it was like 5:30. So we're talking like darn it 4 solid hours of trying to get this thing done. But, hey, we are at the end of the podcast. But before we get out of here officially, always remember, guys, it is not about the consoles. It is about the game. So with that being said, you guys take care until next week when we do it again. You guys take care. Be safe out there. Bye-bye.